Set? Yep. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening. First item on the agenda is review and approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. If anybody has any changes or additions, if they'd be kind enough to share them. Otherwise, I'd look for a motion to approve, please.
Give a motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That's the approval of the minutes. Next item this evening, public hearing, conditional use permit for an electronic sign at Home Federal.
Included in your package, you've got two items there. You've got the actual conditional use for application, the building permit, which has a overhead shot of the what they're basically looking at, and also including what the sign itself would look like. I don't know, it's relatively straightforward, requires the conditional use, permit, but we didn't find anything that was overly complicated. It does, go into the, has it right of way along there, so we have some issues with that, but, it seems like it would fit with the tenor of the businesses in this area. So, and we have a representative from Home Federal here if there's any questions.
Just, it fits in the height guidelines along there.
Correct.
Are we at a stage where all electronic signs still need a conditional use permit regardless? Okay, thank you. Didn't know if we updated that in the last round. With that said, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. If anyone has anything they'd like to share, if they'd be kind enough to come to the podium and share your name and address, please.
Yeah, come on up and just explain why you want it and that sort of thing.
I'm Matt Bradford, the market president for the Casson branch here in town. Lori Keith, our facilities director, was going to be here tonight, but she couldn't make it, so she asked that I attend in case you had any questions in regards to the permit we applied for the electric sign. I just got a couple notes here that she sent with me. She states that the sign would be installed on a couple of posts similar to what's at the convenience store here across the street. I believe Rochester Sign will be installing the sign. The electrical is currently capped from A&A, and they'll be connecting the new sign subject to the approval. That's really all I have, unless you guys had any further questions.
I'm assuming it's gonna be just like any of the other signs out there that'll be off at certain hours.
Well, we have the attached, map of the sign, or the picture of the sign, so it's got two concrete base pylons, and then the signs on 8-inch poles. Looks like it's see, your total height would be 18 feet off the ground, so.
How many feet?
I'd rather see higher signs right there than a lower sign for traffic.
Yep.
Right, this would avoid any kind of issue with people when they're turning motions or going forward, so. Realistically, it's, also what we have to work with in Casson because of the way our downtown, it's kind of a diffuse downtown. We've got the old historic downtown, and then you've got business district, which is kind of spread along a major state highway, which isn't maybe ideal, but, we've allowed it for other situations. So it would make sense to me to allow for the sign, so. What are they planning on putting, just messages of any kind of nature?
I think it'll be about 50% for bank use for our clients and 50% for promoting the community events in town, similar to what they use at our other branches. Yep.
Nope, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
At the risk of being a bit forward, I'll assume there are no additional comments, and I'll go ahead and close the public hearing.
Did you open the public hearing?
I believe I did.
You did?
Okay, good.
Give me
That's
a
right, just checking.
Testing.
What conditions have we put on electronic signs in the past? Because I cannot recall if there was something in there about brightness, if there was anything in there about...
I don't know.
Times to turn it off,
Yep.
like Subway had to turn it off, like by 11 o'clock.
By
at
11,
night.
yeah.
And do we still want to consider the house that is kind of on the corner there where Casey's is to still be a single-family
Right.
home? I don't know if that's too ticky-tacky, but I don't know if we need to work that condition into the conditional use permit.
Is gonna be a problem? You know, if you guys shut it off have it set to shut off at 11 o'clock every night?
No.
Okay.
Thank
Well, I mean,
you.
that probably would be a good condition to add for the light extra.
Well, and the desire isn't to pick on anybody as it is just to be consistent as we look at these things.
Well, I think consistency is important with that, I agree.
So you've got the subway thing, and I'm trying to think of,
There's other signs there that have been turned off.
Well, I know the city sign, which is further up north of the hardware store, I mean, that shuts off too, so
Yeah.
I think they all pretty much shut off, so.
At 11, and don't usually come back on until 6 AM, yeah.
If that's what, yeah, the rest of the year, not a problem.
Burger King thing is kind of an outlier given the height, but that was a desire to pick up traffic off of Highway 14, and they've done
Right.
some work on that.
Well, and as I said, it's not necessarily ideal,
Yeah.
but it's a matter of the way the business is set up on the street there, you know.
Yep. And I can't think of any other conditions we've put on these in the past, so outside of the
That would've
hours of
been it.
operation. Okay. Any other thoughts, ideas, concerns? If not, I would look for a motion, please.
Documented anywhere that, maybe we have to go back and look at what we did for Subway to make sure it's matching, or
It'd have been in previous minutes,
I just
previous
wanna-
council
I mean-
too, but...
just to make sure we're following. Just-
Yeah.
Casey's across the street is lit up all the time with their numbers, so, I mean, I know that's not a sign, but it's still lit up, so I just didn't wanna...
Well, I mean, what we could do is, if you'd like, then, just a motion to apply the same standard for the bank sign as the previous signage, and we'll have that information inputted for the resolution for the council on Wednesday, if that's agreeable. I don't know off the top of my head what the subway,
No,
if it was
I don't
10
either.
o'clock or 11 o'clock, but I think I understand where you're going with this.
I just wanna make sure we're fair to everybody, so,
That's probably 5-6 years ago.
yeah.
It's been a while.
My failing memory as well.
Well,
Don't rely on that.
I would hope that we're not remembering things that we have them listed
No.
somewhere, so that...
Absolutely, I'm sure we have it in the conditional.
It'd be in their conditional, in the resolution. So, well, I'd make that motion to approve with that condition added.
Motion to approve with said condition, do we have a second?
I will second that.
Motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That would be our recommendation to the city council, please.
All right,
That'll be on Wednesday?
that's correct.
Thank you, guys. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next on the agenda is transportation map.
That's right, and that was included for you. We had some discussion earlier this year, we got some feedback from the members of the board here, and just a note that sign, I'm looking at the resolution from Subway, and it was the hours of 1 AM and 6 AM. So, 11 PM would be more than satisfactory, I'm sure, but we'll include that as part of the resolution for the council. So this is I don't know, we took a look at it, and the city engineer and our planning consultants, said, what about making a map of connections as opposed to a map of streets? Because we don't really know where all the streets are gonna go, and especially on the east side of town there with the frontage road, that's problematic for us to be able to say exactly where those are gonna go with the, Mr. Marty owns the property over there, it's unlikely to see his home itself. That property is unlikely to be subdivided, so you'll probably end up having a frontage road that runs along the highway that's south of his property, and then some other kind of connection north of the property, but, so that's why we took a look at it, and you've got the memo in there as well, it's talking about why we do what we do, and it would require a revision to the comprehensive plan, and so at a point in the future, we would want to have that, public hearing for the revision of the comprehensive plan. I don't know, I think it gives us a lot of possibilities. You can see some of them are pretty straightforward. For example, where you live up there, Dan, you know that there's a dead end, and that at some point in the future, it may be quite a while, but at some point in the future, that road probably will go out to the east.
Oh, yeah.
And we know that the roads from Castle Meadows are gonna come down with the stub road that's supposed to go east there as well. As I said, maybe sometime in the future. One that we wanted to take particular attention to is that area directly north in the city. If you take a look, you can see the connections out of Castle Meadows to the northeast, and there is slated to be a connection from Castle Meadows to the west, there's been some, feedback from different people on that, but, we do feel like it's important to include that. Part of it is because this document then becomes a guidance document for developers. We would show this to them and say, well, here's where we're anticipating your connection, so there isn't any question. you know, we expect a connection road, you know, and where exactly it goes and which, you know, block, it isn't necessarily selected, but, one other one that to be cognizant of would be that off of 16th Street, the western extension, which is planned, that's planned on being a city-constructed road using some of our state dollars. But there is a idea that there would be a backage road behind the properties instead of another additional frontage road along the front. So then Mr. Schuete's property as well has a couple of different connections. We're anticipating that the connection on the west side would be a residential connection, and that the connections on the east side would probably be more commercial in nature. But with that, I'd take any questions anyone has.
Well, at least it's not set in stone exactly where you want the road, because you know, there's flexibility.
Well, and some of them are relatively straightforward. I mean,
Yeah,
you
but-
could see all the western connections off of, the far west side of town. I mean, those would line up with our roads that currently exist.
Mhm.
We don't want to have a situation like 7th Street exists where it's
Oh,
offset.
yeah.
It leads us to another issue of paving on some of these roads. You know, for example, on that western edge of town, I mean, it's a gravel road, you know, and at some point in time, that needs to be paved, and who bears the cost of that and how that's funded. You know, there was no developer participation as the western side of town developed. There probably should have been, you know, because it doesn't benefit anybody but the people who will be developing to the west. But, you know, I think it's important to explain that to people as we go forward.
There's an arrow, east of Manorville Avenue, right by, off of County Road 34, right off of that T-199 to the left of that. Is that something going across the tracks, or just back into a development there?
You're talking about the short arrow that just
Yep.
goes through kind of where Schwenke is down there, or?
Yeah, yep,
Okay.
is that just
I
connected?
mean, I think that would probably be part of it would probably be a connection that would go into that south side of, Carter Blaine's development, most likely.
But not something going across the railroad tracks?
Well, at some point in time, it might. I don't know how that would end up lining up if we do a parallel road. I would anticipate that it's, I mean, and of course, that isn't on here, but that probably is, that's one good catch there, Aaron, from, I mean, realistically, we don't guide to having a road connection over the river there. You know, we've got one going, I mean, it would have to be going over the railroad tracks, because otherwise, that road, that arrow that's, kind of in the northeast corner there of the city, that's on the south side of the river would not connect to anything, so, that's a good point. So probably having some kind of a connection that goes maybe over the you know, obviously the city's engaged in some dispute with Mr. Blaine over that subdivision. You know, the planning commission's well aware of the platted limits there and meeting those requirements, but, I can get some more clarification on that, because it looks like they probably need to rotate that small arrow that's right on top of Carter's property, so.
Where you live isn't even on the map, so.
It's true. I'm still in the township somehow. But we'll have to update this, but it is based off of pre-annexation with Houston's first there, you're right.
I understand. What's the purple commercial collector? Oh. So as a city, where are we trying to encourage developers to go at the moment?
Well, I think that, most of the conversation, and I don't know that we necessarily influence developers, you know, that isn't something I would say we encourage them, but I think we are anticipating a lot of the development, on the Minot property, and that sort of northeast quadrant, kind of south of where Dan lives, and northeast of where I live. And then, I mean, I expect that northwest area to probably be one of the areas that fills in relatively quickly as well, because of the ease of access with sewer and water. Those are probably the biggest, concerns. I did have a meeting last week with the township board for Canisteo Township. We don't have an orderly annexation agreement on file right now with Canisteo Township, and so that's something that I've worked with them to try and get up. We have a draft agreement, and, they gave us an okay to, the council actually approved it in, I think, June or July. There was some tweaks that the township wanted, and that sets us up for the framework to the south, because we are gonna reach a point where that development, easy development to the north will be pretty well exhausted. And that we'll expect to start seeing the development on the east side and the west side and the south side. But, The nature of those developments is, yet to be determined, of course.
Good. Anything else?
Okay, so what I will do is I'll have them tweak that arrow so that it goes across the Maston Creek instead of, pointing to the southwest, and then we'll also take a look at, adding in the updated map, the underlaying map, so that it adds all the areas that have already been annexed into city limits. All right, that's all I've got for that, thank you.
Next up,
We may have a public hearing on it in December
Sure.
to incorporate it into the comp plan.
And the reason I guess she mentions December is because, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, would be our schedule for November. We may not have a meeting in November based on the content level that we have, so.
If you're trying to add this to the comp plan, at what point do you, like the Bigelow property that was brought on, that was not necessarily, it was in the comp plan, but on the fringe of it, do you start to do anything else at that time to?
In terms of widening out the picture, you mean?
Well, yeah, I just, ultimately, yes, that was in the comp plan, and boom, it's property that's being developed, and then you've got
Sure.
everybody all over it, and,
Yeah.
I totally agree with where you're saying the development is going to be, but that corridor going east of town, that road that's already there.
Well, I will say, so that's a good point. So the parcel that's just east of the New Comet Acres subdivision, that is technically in the Orderly annexation, plan.
Okay.
And then actually the county just re-guided their urban expansion, map to add the next section to the east on the north side as well. So we certainly would see that, I think, added into our comp plan amendment. So that's a good point too, is we might start to broaden out that urban fringe, because you're right, realistically, development along that road is relatively straightforward. I'm not saying it's the healthiest, most efficient way to grow, obviously it's not. We'd rather have the infill development of closer things because of the sewer and water, but on that northeast side, you're already close to the sewer plant. So adding in a sewer line that runs parallel with 16th Street going east, if you wanted to, you could pretty much just plop developments down all the way out to Byron, so.
And it's a lot less costly, because there's a road already there versus the parkway that we're looking to put in, there's a lot of infrastructure to be put in with something like that.
Right, absolutely. You're looking at, developments that can just kind of run off of that main road. And they'd have to still be, it's something we have to do, is we have to make sure that those interconnections between developments are continued. It's kind of like we just finished that one with Little's and the one that's slated for this one. You're gonna want to have that alternate route in and out, but, if the planning commission and the council decided to be in a very, decided to loosen up the planning and zoning a little bit there and relax density, you could see that develop very quickly.
Because the minor property and the property south of it, is it the Ruport one?
Mm-hmm.
What is that, 120, is that like 120 acres in there?
She's got, I think it's about 120, maybe a little less than that, but yeah.
Between the two properties?
Yeah. She's got 40 and he's got 80, I think, yeah. And I don't know
So you're
that,
talking about another, what, is that another 120 times 3 is 360 houses in there?
I've kind of guided towards 400, but yeah, something
Yeah,
along those lines. Right.
there's gonna be some fairly high density there, so when you start to look at going east of the high school, you can kind of fairly easily continue what's the larger lots that are out there, right, from that standpoint.
Yeah, and they could even get a little bigger lot and a little fewer homes, depends on what the developer wants to do.
Yeah. I think he's trying to guide it towards that is higher density in there.
Well, in terms of efficiency, I don't know that, even to your point about continuing along 16th Street, I don't know that we would want to guide any lower than we already have.
No, I'm not saying,
Those 2 acre lots are already, because what ends up happening is we have additional sewer and water costs, the plant expansion
yeah.
because of the, lift pumps and things like that, but yeah, I think the minor property, the Rupert property, those are probably ones that would be at least at a similar density to the surrounding,
Yes.
Homes. So right now, we're looking at about 4 homes per acre, quarter acre or .2, acre lots. That's pretty typical, like, for example, in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
And, so.
And
But you got the ones like up our neighborhood, my neighborhood, that are bigger lots. So you-
Sure, except the fact that the functional lots for you are not actually that much bigger. So a part of it is the topography. So, I mean, functionally speaking, you have some very large lots, but most of the functional space, for example, like right up where you're at, Dan, I mean, the actual area you can use is, you know, that isn't as large as the lot itself. So, I mean, that's something to keep in mind too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just, you to keep into the flow up there, the builder is good.
Because the lots, when you pull into that subdivision, the lots on the left side of that road, on the east
Them are
side,
small.
those are small lots.
Yes, those are the reason they're last, but I mean, if they're gonna look at developer's gonna push for a little bigger lot, because he's gonna get more money.
Well.
I don't know, I mean,
agree with that.
Yeah, I think in your neighborhood, I mean, and this is just my perspective on it, I think that you're probably gonna see similarly sized lots, but you're gonna see higher-end homes. Because it is a higher-end neighborhood, and because across the street you're gonna have very, very nice homes, you could still gonna see, there's a certain market niche, and Mr. Bigelow would know it a lot better than I do, but what I see in Rochester is you see still the quarter-acre lots, but you see $600,000, $700,000 houses on those in town. Because not everybody wants to have a huge lot. Some people really do.
Yeah.
And they're gonna buy the one and common acres, and some people say, hey, I need my patio, and I don't wanna be mowing for all Saturday, you know what I mean? But that's a good point, Dan, and I, you know, that's something the planning commission and the council are gonna have to talk about is, you know, what do we wanna see? Because every time we add a big subdivision like common acres, there's pluses and there's minuses. You know, it's not super efficient, but it's good to have that as part of the community as well. You don't wanna block people out of certain, you know, socioeconomic groups, you know.
Yeah, 'cause that, there with the little bigger lots, you're gonna have a lot higher end homes than you're leaving in, you know.
Right.
'Cause that was the whole reasoning of that they went to them bigger lots was, you know, them, that's where Joe will be moving to.
He lives down on that ritzy southwest part of Casson. That's where the fat cats live, really. You know.
Well, you got part of it right.
Got their horses and all that.
There's a lot of cats.
When you average out your acreage and his acreage.
We're good. Bigelow can just keep building next to me, the value of my house is going up.
That's good for you. All right.
Otherwise, so yeah, I mean, we are looking at that, probably for the December meeting then.
So back to the question, so because there's already an orderly annexation agreement, you really don't have to worry about it from our comp plan side, because it's already tied into the.
Well, I mean, I think what we'll do is this, I mean, you brought up some good points about the map itself. The underlying map, I mean, I think that the connectivity part of it, which is what we were kind of talking about
Yeah,
tonight,
yeah.
I think that looks good with a few tweaks. I think updating the map underlaying that we approve at that hearing will update, you know, to a certain extent to guide where we're looking at growth. Because, yeah, I mean, you're right, I mean, obviously, we just threw common acres in there, and we kind of bypassed a certain number of properties, which, who knows when they'll come in, if they come in. You know, the same thing's true for some of these other ones. But, yeah, we'll update that as well, maybe to guide for a little bit better.
Part of bringing some of them in will be when the county tells them that their sewer and well fail and they won't update them.
Well, and the county has a lot of these properties in the urban expansion zone. So, the nice part about that for us is that it does give the city's planning commission a certain degree of ability to influence what happens. Not 100%.
Right.
But, you know, notification, for example, we had that solar proposal on the northwest side of town where, you know, after the planning commission looked at it, the council talked about it a little bit, I told them, I mean, we're not interested really. You know, and the same thing's true with some of these other, I've had requests for solar projects on the southwest part of town. Granted, it's not as accessible, but at the same time, like, I don't really want it next to city limits, because you're definitely gonna limit what you can do.
30 years.
Well, yeah, minimum 30 years, right. And at that point, who knows what the value of the property would be, it might be better as a different kind of development, but yeah, I mean, if it was just 5 years, you're right, it's not as big of a deal, so.
1,800 acres.
1,800 acres, yeah, that's Canisteo Township, and they're not real happy about it either, but, I don't know, state kinda shoved that one through, so.
Just, maybe one more arrow, go to the far east side of town, there's, in the upper corner, there's two that are going east and west. And one going north and south. Should there be anything else interconnecting? Maybe I'm nitpicking, but those properties, to me, would probably sell separately, and I don't see an arrow connecting those two properties east of the creek, south of 16th Street.
Well, I mean, I guess I've got one coming out of Dan's subdivision going into the east.
Mhm.
So that parcel that's to the north looks like it's got 1, 2, 3, it's got 4 connections. That one to the south also
Yeah.
has 1, 2, 3, it's got 3 connections also, I think.
I'm talking this one right here.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. The
But
one on the north side absolutely, I think, has enough.
The one on the north
connections
side,
now.
Yes.
But even the one on the south side has enough for
I mean,
now.
it does have 3. Part of it is we're guessing. I don't
No,
really
and
know.
I understand that, I'm just saying if
Where else would
somebody...
you
No, I'm
want
just saying
another?
if somebody develops this piece of property, you're not showing any connectivity to that piece of property.
Okay, so you're thinking one from
Yes.
from the north parcel into the south
Yeah,
parcel.
just
That's
because those
definitely
parcels are separate, so,
Yeah, that's
like I
definitely
said,
something we could look at adding, yeah.
I said, I think I'm nitpicking a little bit, but
No, I mean, that certainly is something we can add. I mean, it won't necessarily occur until it develops, but absolutely. I can definitely see what you're saying there.
Yep.
Okay,
I think we got every quarter section taken care of everywhere else.
sure. All makes sense.
Moving on, we've got Vale property update discussion.
All right, well, and this is mostly informational, but, we do have the council taking a first look at this, couple of different things here. Last meeting we had, you saw sort of the subdivision idea, and this one is kind of the park planning, and Park and Rec has already taken a look at this. But as a planning commission, just to bring you in the loop, make sure you're aware of what they're looking at. There are a couple different options that they've taken a look at. One is a higher impact use, as you'll be able to see. The option A is definitely going to have a higher impact in terms of traffic counts and road infrastructure and things like that. And then option B is a little lower infrastructure cost and a little bit lower impact. So those I just wanted to include for you to see, and you could take a look at them, and, if you have questions, I'm glad to answer those. Basically, what they're looking at is, these two options would allow this park, with the added population, potential 1,500 residents in that area, in very high-density housing, to become kind of a premier park for the city. So it's not a 5-year plan here. This is definitely a 15, 20-year park plan, but, it's something that I wanted to bring to you so you could just take a look and critique and all that sort of thing. A couple of things that I've already been told and heard feedback on. If the fourplex diamonds go in, obviously the parking lot has to be larger than it is on the map there. So that's definitely something we've already noticed, that wasn't in the design that the folks at HGKI kind of wrote in there. And a couple of the other things that we noted were things that need to be updated, where they already have a pickleball court, needs to be reassigned its position on the map there for option A, but the components are all there, so.
Where is the parking lot for the Four Diamonds?
Just to the southeast of it there.
Oh, it's, okay, it's covered by something that's
Yep.
previous on my screen. I got it, no, it came up. I got rid of that.
I say, it's marked pretty well, but then I
Yeah.
looked over at your screen and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that's why.
And actually, I was down, took a look at this property in person. I mean, I walked, and last week, it wasn't terribly wet, so we walked down there, and, it's fascinating, there really is quite a bit of space down there. And actually, looking at the map, I mean, the ball fields are an interesting thought. My concern was flooding and that sort of thing. Obviously, ball fields flooding is better than houses flooding.
Yep.
But at the same time, I don't know that area typically has flooded a tremendous amount. It's relatively high as compared to the area along the creek itself.
Yeah, you can kind of see some contours on the second one,
Mm-hmm.
a few more that kind of follow up.
Well, and I mean, certain years, for example, 2019, they would have had water issues, but, the vast majority of years, you probably would not have any impact. I'm not so sure that that's true for the other option B, which has the ball fields actually placed on the current Lions Park footprint. I mean, the nice thing about this one is that it's obviously lower cost, lower impact, it's easier to construct. Basically, you're looking at some sort of shifting of the golf course, which would allow for 18 holes also, which would be nice for us. I don't know how many folks actually use that, but some people do. And it also doesn't require the road extension. It would just be pedestrian bridges, which are far less, cost and impact than trying to get a road built down to the property there.
those are, option B, those were definitely all underwater.
Right.
Where the ball fields were and all.
Right.
Because the water was up into those apartment complexes, so.
Yep.
Versus option A.
Option A is higher.
Okay.
Better keep it Pee Wee softball on the one that's option A, because you go over 200 feet, you're hitting balls out onto Highway 14.
You can adjust those fields to, you can place them in there differently, and you'd get a better fit.
Come on.
But those are.
Challenge accepted, we could.
Just the planning commission adult softball men's league here, come on, I like that, it's a good idea. P and Z, they'll call themselves, the P and Zers, that sounds pretty good.
Somebody has to run for me.
I'll be the
Catch,
blind.
put you behind the
I'll be the
plate.
blind pitcher. I do like in both options that they're actually looking at paving that parking lot.
Well, right, we know that would be a definite need, and drainage probably for the parking lot as well as lighting. I guess, are there any other, items that, you gentlemen see that aren't included that, you've heard someone say, oh, that'd be great to include? I mean, really, this is a thought exercise, and it's partly because we're looking at super high density in this area for housing, which we want to provide this amenity as a green space option for those folks. And to be honest, this whole area is relatively high density with apartments and townhomes. So it makes sense, and if we're gonna have a park of this nature, it would make sense to invest in it. The Veterans Park, for the most part, now with the wall being refinished, will be a gleaming jewel for our community, of course. And you're gonna have a good part of that, right?
Yeah, I was up there today and
They got a hold of you.
looked at what we're gonna take out, because he's about ready for the cement to be pulled out of between the pinnacles.
Okay.
So this week, we tear it up.
But, so this is, something they've identified in the 20-year kind of park planning as a document, so.
Well, that's what we need to be doing, is planning long range into the future.
Well, and that's why I'm bringing it to you, because I'm interested in your feedback, and we don't have to, if you think of something, let me know. If there's something else you say, hey, what about X, Y, and Z, or if you go to another community and they have something that, that's oftentimes what I do, and if we just excavate this whole thing and put a lake right there, I think we'll be in good shape,
Right.
I
Just
agree with
make
that.
sure when they do plan on putting trees in,
Yeah.
put a decent-sized tree to give shade and coverage immediately instead of waiting for it to grow. Other people ain't gonna utilize the park area unless,
Sure.
you don't want a sapling there.
So we should plant the trees now.
Yeah.
In 20 years, they'll be
Right.
good size.
'Cause when they started renovating that area in the first place and started moving playground equipment, there was no water, there was no trees.
Sure.
And they kept people from wanting to go there.
Right. It's limited our use. So anyways, that's all I've got on that. Just more informational, and if you think of something, it'll come back up again. But,
I think it's great that you're doing some things to try to, if it's the direction of the city council or whatever, but,
Right.
to make sure that when somebody comes to town and says, hey, where can we develop, there is a place. And that is important, so.
I had Due North Coffee in my packet
that's
as
right.
well. Is
One
that
more
something?
item, and I will let Linda talk about this a little bit more. But this is kind of a process that's gone up and down all over the place. We were contacted maybe 3 months ago with this coffee shop concept over at Chopco.
Oh.
It started as a
It
shed.
started off as a building,
Right.
and then it went to a mobile, and now it's back to a building.
And it's a different owner now.
Is it? I guess I don't know the ownership, but, so it's been
No, we
kind of
haven't
through
been
this.
told the ownership,
Oh.
because
It kind of through
we're
the
working
ringer.
with the engineer.
Yeah. But they're basically looking at this coffee shop in, the parking lot of Shopko. And it's a drive-through only, it's not a,
Do these people know that we had a coffee shop in that parking lot at one time and it failed?
Yep.
miserably?
They do.
I haven't spoken with like I said, we haven't really communicated with the owners a whole lot. I know that the folks who own Plaza 57 have been very interested in this. They see it as something that, has a market. And I think this design's a little bit different from maybe, I don't know what that coffee shop was like. I couldn't tell you.
And I realize it was a long time ago too, so.
It was a shed, wasn't it?
It was a shed and, the operating hours were not necessarily
Yeah.
Well,
standard.
and according to the plans, they're gonna have a mini donut machine, so.
So,
Big difference.
That's
the biggest thing is, if you're gonna have it, you gotta
Taking the ozone equipment, are they?
man hours.
So, I mean, I do think that there is a market, obviously, for it, you know, and the location is closer to the 57, you know, exchange for folks that are coming in out of town. It's probably not a, I mean, in the long run, I guess they can do what they want. We did find it's permitted with standards, so it doesn't actually require any kind
Drive-through.
of permitting.
No, we're kind of,
Good side of the
they
road for exit.
satisfied the traffic flow. Laura's looked at it. We're kind of, we're just waiting for a building permit now.
Are they still thinking in that same spot where the initially were
Behind,
kind of behind Fernbrook there?
mhm,
Okay. With just space to obviously drive around?
right.
Kinda like where they're parking those food trucks.
Yeah.
Well, there's electric right in the middle of that parking lot, isn't there? So,
That's why they got the food trucks, and they also have the hair cutting place that goes in.
And water in that one too. The
Yeah.
one light pole, I put those in, we put water and electrical.
Mobile hair salon.
One of those trailers was. a
Comes every
hair salon.
Tuesday if you need a haircut.
Cut stands here.
I am out of town by 6 o'clock and come back in at about 7 most nights, so. And I leave the east side of town, so that's the other thing I don't ever.
I pay way too much for my haircut.
One thing that we have run into,
That's right.
which is a good question for you guys as well, and Lynn and I have talked about it, what ends up happening is we have this, we have a submittal. You know, we're looking at our fee schedule for next year. We have a submittal like this, and someone says, well, here's what I wanna do. And so, you know, Laura and Brad, you know, they spend some of their time on it, you know, figuring out some of the specifics of it. They have charges that come to us, and then for some of these concept reviews, for example, this started off as a building, and then it became a food truck, and now it's back to a building, and the question is, do they need a new permit? How do we charge off the time that's spent on some of these things? Is something where, you know, there's some difficulty in that. You know, do we say, well, the first hour is free, and then after that, you know, the city pays for the first hour, and then after that, you know, for some of our larger projects, we charge them to the project fund. So, you know, the developer gets an invoice and says, you know, it's part of their, whether it's Brandon's time for this engineer watching the project and all the connections, or it's something else. You know, for smaller items like this, we're not entirely sure, and Linda's been looking at a lot of other cities and what they charge and trying to figure out a good fee, but just kind of letting you know that we're sort of struggling with, you know, how does that work for some of these projects, and, you know, any kind of feedback you have on that too.
Because we have a concept fee that's really basically for development. It's $2,000. I don't think, I mean, we've got that much into this project, but
But not
if it
normal.
would've started out right, it would've, we wouldn't need that much. But I was thinking, you know, if it's gonna be something that needs looking at, that much looking at, you know, should we look at a $300 to $500 concept fee for basic?
Well, I know.
Did
when
they
I-
ever submit a building permit for like the very first one? Or was everything's just been concept to this point?
Everything's just been concept up to this point.
I know when I've submitted stuff, do some stuff in Nebraska, I mean, they charge me $800 just to submit the plans to be reviewed. And if the project doesn't go anywhere, $800 was there for the city to do with their portion, and then I pay for the building fee on, I mean, you're basically paying for the review of things, and then your last part of your fee is the inspections and everything like that, so.
Yeah,
And this
'cause
would
then
be
we would
only
have,
for commercial.
yeah,
Right.
'cause then we would
Yeah.
have a separate fee then once they submit the building permit.
Right.
Oh, the building permit has its own fee.
That's got its
That's
own-
based on
That's
valuation
total.
and, yeah.
Yep.
But the ones I'm submitting are even building permits. The whole point is they're paying a plan examiner to review it and approve it, so they're asking for that fee before they even do it.
Right.
Because if the project doesn't go, who pays?
Right, and that's kind of where we've run into in the past, where the city really hasn't, you know, it's been kind of a quasi, and, you know, we're utilizing some outside help too. So it's not just my time or Linda's time. You know, if we send an email to Laura and say, hey, can you look at this? Well, she looks at that email, and that's nothing against her, but that's how the, you know, half an hour of review time, and, you know, it's good for her, she's doing her job, but it's, and we're asking her to do it, but I mean, I know every time I send an email to her, or to Brad, or to the city attorney, there's gonna be a cost associated
Well, then,
with it.
I mean, 'cause I don't think there's an issue with having a $300 or $500 or whatever the dollar amount ends up to be, but I think there needs to be a time frame put on it, you
Okay.
know, whether it's 30 days or 60 days, like, you submit this, and within this 30 days, we will accept any and all changes, or, so, you know, because it is concept, you know, so.
Right.
We review it and say, hey, we think maybe if you do this, this, and this, you know, and then they have opportunity to tweak their concept.
You'd have to give it at least 60 or 90 days, though.
You know, yeah, I mean, give them some time, but then at that point, they would have to, like, if the 60 days runs out, then you're done, it's another $300
Look at what
or...
we could do with this coffee shop, how many times it's changed and how long we've looked at it.
Right.
You know, every time it's changed, we could basically charge a new concept fee.
Yep.
I can play devil's advocate. Are you promoting growth, or are you,
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be a cost, because then somebody's gonna make sure they have their ducks in a row versus submitting thing after thing after thing.
Well, no, I mean, I
You
completely
know,
understand that, and that's why we haven't been.
Right,
I mean, really, 'cause
right.
we are trying to promote, I mean, and I think the thing that I would always tell anyone who came into City Hall, I mean, if you want, if it's me or Linda looking at it, or we're looking at it together and we're trying to give you some feedback, you know,
Right.
for example, we've met with the judicious a couple of
Yeah.
times on different things, and we haven't charged them, and we're not going to, I mean,
Right.
because it's my time, and that's what I'm being paid to do here, is to try and tell you. However, I'm not an engineer, I'm not an architect, and, I know my limitations on that, which is why, for certain things like traffic flow patterns, I could say, well, make sure nobody runs into each other, that doesn't give anybody real specific help.
And that's where I would say, like, just that, like, once you and Linda feel that it has gone outside of your...
Purvey.
Yeah, like, then at that point, like, if you get to the point where you feel that we have to bring Brad and Lori in, and now the city's incurring costs outside of, your time to just review things, then I don't think I don't think we're overstepping at that point.
Well, and the city's philosophy has always been, development pays for development. We're not making money on
Yeah.
this, we're only paying our fees. And the thing is, even if we charge a $300 fee, if we have Laura's got 3 hours
Let her
into
squat.
it, there it is, it's gone.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
easy, and from my perspective, I think that's easily defensible from a council standpoint to say, this is why we charge that, is because here's our fee schedule with Laura. And if she looked at this a couple of different
Or
times...
the engineer.
Yeah, like, that's...
I think that
You're easily gonna eat that fee up.
if that's put into a format, they're gonna get a lot more serious, a lot quicker, and not jump around so much. It's like, well, this could get, we don't wanna incur that fee, let's kinda
Sit down
narrow this
and
down.
get our ducks in a row before we...
Instead of just like, hey, let's do this, and no, let's do this, and, they're gonna start counting. Sure.
The other aspect of it,
If they know about it.
they submit it the first time, hey, we're pro-development, we want things to happen. You submit it a second time, now you have to pay a fee to submit it the second time from that standpoint. I
Yeah.
mean, that way you're not, that would take care of this one, because now you'd be covering the cost moving forward
Yeah.
versus the first time, you can say, hey, we're pro-development.
Sure.
And going from there. And I think that alludes to Joe's, is you gotta put a time limit on it that says, hey, yeah, you can send whatever changes in the first 90 or 120 days, but, basically after that, it closes and it would be,
Okay. Well, no, I appreciate that feedback, and I think, so what we'll probably do is we'll work up a certain fee for I don't know what we'll call it exactly, but it won't be the full concept, like a development concept review, but it'll be something like that, and, I'll continue just to guide people that if, once it goes past the city, city's purvey, once it goes in the hands of a planner, there's gonna be a cost associated, and it'll be down on the paper for next year, so.
Yep.
Okay. That's all I've got.
No, November.
Oh, sure. So, based on the content we have right now, we don't have a lot. In fact, I don't think we have anything really.
No.
That we're looking at maybe, canceling the meeting in November. The other option would be to move it back, I think, what did you say, Lynn?
To the 15th.
To the 15th. If something did come in, I guess to me, if it looks like we don't have the content, maybe, I think we're better off just planning on canceling it. But that's, certainly up to the
when does
planning
stuff have
commission.
to be submitted by?
If it's on the 8th, it has to be submitted next week. And the thing is, I'm on vacation the 19th through the 26th. So if you want it in the paper, it's gotta get here by Monday. I'm here Monday. If we do it the 15th, I can get it in the paper when I get back. Laura has nothing on her plate, nothing in her, on her desk that is, that she thinks is gonna come up this fast. I mean, we could move it to the 15th, or we could tentatively, if we need one, do it on the 15th, or we could just try and cancel it altogether.
I would just say cancel it
Yeah, I'm fine with
myself,
canceling if
just
you don't need it.
if there's nothing.
Yeah.
If something urgent comes up, though, I mean, if we need
Yeah.
to, we'll wrap it out of the hat.
Okay, and we have 5 Mondays in November, so it does help us. But, okay, well, we'll just plan on that for right now, and we'll just communicate with you if there's something that does come up and it's something that needs to be dealt with immediately. I don't foresee it right now, we're not seeing the action we saw last year on the developments, so, but,
You're gone the 19th through the,
26th.
Anything about, are we into other? Can I move on to other?
Yeah,
I have two
go right
things
ahead.
for other.
What's other?
please do.
I thought we were in other.
No, we're in other.
Our fence, issue up on Highway 52, has that been discussed or broached?
57?
Yeah, pardon me, 57, thank you.
Which fence issue?
you say Casson got
The
big on
gentleman said in the white.
this.
Confined or conform to either the old code or the new code.
You're talking about the tall one?
Yes, sir.
The solid one? Well, I mean, the guidance that I got from planning and zoning was to follow up with a letter. You dropped off that permit, we followed up with a letter, and we really haven't gotten a response.
Okay.
So,
They turned in the conditional use permit, but no payment.
well, that's true too, yeah. So, that was several months ago.
And they've been told they needed a payment,
Mhm.
but they've just ignored me.
So what is the next step? I'm not saying you're taking it, I'm saying what is the next step?
Well, that's up to the planning commission to decide, I think.
Send them another letter and...
Well, I mean, do you send them another letter that says if we don't hear from you by such and
Yeah, I mean, I
such
guess
time,
that's really, I mean, if you wanna enforce this in that kind of way, which is fine, which is certainly our, ability to do so, then that would be the next step, is that we would send them a letter saying, you need to take it down, or you need to come in here and do the hearing, or we're gonna take it down for you, and we're gonna assess the cost of taking it down to you, and then you're not gonna have a fence, and you're gonna owe us a couple $100 for the time that it takes the public works guys to take it
Or
down.
more.
Couple $100.
It's gonna cost more than that, take it down.
Well, we wouldn't be
I mean,
taking,
I mean,
we
we went-
wouldn't be taking the whole fence down, it would just be the part that's fronting on 57.
Oh.
Just
their
chainsaw
side-
and boom, it's down, and I'm assuming.
I mean,
it'll come down
I guess he
pretty
can
quick.
take a chainsaw off, and he can cut it down to 3 feet high, and he'd be okay, whatever fronts 57.
The other, the side
15
along the
minute
side
job.
street is fine.
Yep.
The tall part along the side street is,
As far as I know, it's not over 6 feet, is it?
And it's not...
is it 6 feet all the way, or is it?
It's the 3 feet on street sides. I mean, being that it's on a corner, it's got two fronts.
Right, that's what I said, it's got two street sides, yeah.
It's got
So,
two fronts.
Right.
Yeah.
So you would have to do the east and the south.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, my perspective is the issue was the 57 component. I don't know, but, I can look into it again. I don't know what the rules exactly are on that.
Well, we went through a whole fence ordinance because of it. I think we need to follow through and,
I'm just terrified somebody goes, well, if they did it, why can't I do it?
well,
And
they're going to,
I'm
and
not
then
trying
they say,
to
yeah.
turn their shoelaces yellow, I'm not
No.
trying to do that at all.
I mean,
Well, and we
ultimately,
encourage the fact, for him to go through the variance process for a reason.
Exactly.
You know,
Can't touch it.
like, we don't wanna get, I feel like we're just running right down another Wilker situation.
Yeah.
And we're gonna end up in a lawsuit over a fence, and that's my fear, but it's like, we can't, you send them letters and you send them all the paperwork, where all he's gotta do is just come in and follow.
I mean, the longer he...
Follow what
I
we put out in
think-
front of them, and
The
everything.
longer he
will be taken
delays,
care
the
of.
more people are gonna be not happy.
Well, the longer he delays, you can put it, in my opinion, put it in the letter, it doesn't look favorable on you trying to get something
Yeah.
because you made a mistake, it's
Yeah.
now, you want something because you don't want,
Cause if he gets the letter that says you're gonna get assessed, the city's gonna come pat your fences down, he's gonna be in the office screaming bloody
With a
murder. You
We've
know,
had people come in already that said, my neighbors put up a fence, just last year, and it's right up to the property line, and I just wanna hook onto it, and I'm like, this is the new fence ordinance. I know that's what they used to be able to do, but you can't do it any longer. And, they're not happy about it, but I give them, this is the remedy that you can do, and I don't know, I kind of feel the same way about this fence on 57. It's like, people aren't gonna come in and go, well, you let him do it. No, well, we may have then, but everything's changed since then, and we have a way to do
Yeah, I mean, I
it.
guess escalation is always the issue. I mean, we could send them another letter and say, here's the charge, we received your conditional use application, we still require the $300 or whatever it is for the publications, we haven't published anything, and the hearing is scheduled for December 10th, or something like that, or will be scheduled for December 10th.
Is there, is there a way in that letter to lay out what the next steps would be if?
Well, sure,
If
yeah,
he
we
does-
absolutely
if he-
can say that,
if he doesn't
right?
go through with the conditional use and, or whatever it was that if he doesn't follow through,
Then the city follows through on the next step.
we've kind of laid out what the city's next steps are.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly can let them know that, the next steps are removal of the fence, the parts that are breaking the code, and that'll be done at their expense.
Whether they do it or the city does it.
I mean, 'cause
Well, I
then.
mean, if they do it, then the problem's solved, but, if.
Because then
we have
that's,
to remove it, that'll be our expense.
we're giving them notice, we're giving them another opportunity to come in and, pay the fee for, for going through this process. We're also letting them know, like, if you don't, these are the next steps that the city's going to take. We're not saying that, because at the end of the day, you're going to get another letter saying, the city's going to do this if you don't, and we'll be out there on Monday.
Yeah, I mean, part of the issue I see is that if we're gonna be consistent and we're gonna obey the letter of the law, whether it makes sense or not, there isn't any way we should give them a CUP. Because it is not an individual circumstance that it requires a CUP at all.
Right.
So if now I'm telling you to come in and you already don't like it, and you're gonna come in, you're gonna give me $300, and thinking, okay, yep, I got this, okay, and now you're not gonna get it,
So is
they make
there,
it, like you saw, I don't wanna have a situation where we create a lawsuit that's gonna cost $100,000, and would we be in the right? Absolutely. So I don't know, I mean, that's my problem with it, I guess, is I don't mind sending them a letter and seeing if they come in, but in my opinion, this
shouldn't
does not
happen.
meet the criteria for a CUP whatsoever, it's a fence. They could have put a 3-foot high fence in, it would have been fine, it wouldn't have needed anything.
well, do you send them a letter that says that,
Please bring your fence in compliance.
please bring your fence into compliance and, applying for a CUP? Doesn't
I wouldn't
look-
encourage them to apply for a CUP.
Oh, yeah, don't,
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Bring your,
To me,
bring your
like-
fence into compliance, or please remove it.
yeah.
Otherwise, there will be ramifications.
I'm not sure if
Right.
that's a little
Do
warmer
we
and
have
friendly or not.
them bring it into compliance, the current fence ordinance, or do we bring them into compliance, the ordinance, when they put it up?
The current fence ordinance.
Current,
The
I would say
current
the
fence ordinance.
current fence
'Cause they're
ordinance,
not-
because
they-
they never really got permission to put the first
Right.
one up in the first place.
and he wasn't in compliance in the
Unless
first
you're
one
gonna
either.
Well,
fight
and then you
with,
can argue
email,
it.
with the email that he got from
Right.
Amy.
But he wasn't in compliance in the first,
He's just
Well,
overnight,
but that's,
right?
I
that's
don't
what
think
he
it really would, I don't think the current ordinance would be any worse than the previous
No.
one.
Right.
I don't think it would
I mean, he
affect
can put up a
anything.
chain link.
Either way, I
It
think
really,
it's out
it
of
really is
compliance.
really easier, actually, but,
Because can't he put up a chain link fence if he wanted to, because you can see through it?
yep.
And then at that point, yeah.
I mean, suffice to say, I'm perfectly glad to send a letter. What'll end up happening is that this will come to a city council meeting, and, and the council will hopefully be prepared ahead of time, because there's gonna be some upset people about it, and that's their job, is to deal with upset residents. And I don't have a problem doing that, I just wanna be realistic about so I think that's a better option, is bring your fence into compliance, and, we'll give them a generous window of time, because it's November, or, October. I
So-
could say, maybe by the end of the year, our goal is to get a response and get a dialogue going, which we haven't had, so that's fair.
Right, because if there's a game, hey, well, we're gonna take it down next spring and we'll redo it, okay, at least you got a game plan, and then you can put it to rest till then, so.
Or he'll sell his house, and the new owner will have to deal with it, which is fine. Well, I mean, I'm a little afraid of that. With some of these, we've had a lot of houses turn over on 57, and how many of those people know that they have a new street project coming next year? We'll find out. But I appreciate that. That's good that you brought that up, because sometimes these things, I'll admit, they slip my mind. I don't always think about it.
Well, and I'm just thinking, things that we've touched on in the past and made an investment in time.
Sure.
The other thing I have on my list, just to make everybody's life interesting, is I was at the Legion Saturday evening, and I think the fence they put up there as well was not exactly the same as at least what I envisioned when they came in here to present the idea.
I think you're probably right on that,
Okay,
Tom.
so.
I think the
since you-
staff have
You were 100%
been in disagreement with,
Okay.
I think staff disagree with the council's action, and, you know, I'll leave it at that. I mean, the council chose to approve a project that we disagreed with, and that's their prerogative, so.
Okay, so I,
So
again, I'm not always-
it was approved,
Sure.
no, I meant council approved it?
They approved moving the Legion, moving forward with the project. I don't think that the council...
The council didn't approve
I don't think the
what got
council
put in.
approved what was put up,
Okay.
because it doesn't match at all what they had prepared and shown to us. However, I haven't had anybody from the council say, oh, no, we've got to get after them either. The biggest problem I have with it is that they never did put a fence in the front half of the...
No.
I mean, that was the whole point. Like, even if they had put the barrels or whatever, I don't really care. But they didn't fence it off. They just,
It's not
open to
even
the
really,
public.
it's not even really a fence.
It doesn't look
Yeah.
terribly structurally sound. And
Oh, no.
I guess my concern first and foremost is safety.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want anybody.
So, no, I mean, you're not wrong to bring that up, Tom. I will say, you know, sometimes the council actions isn't what we go with, and sometimes even the council doesn't realize what's gonna happen, and it's not their fault either, but I'm not sure if that's worth a fight over right now, so,
And the council is well aware of what they put up.
exactly.
So if anybody on the council wanted to do anything about it, all they have to do is let us know.
Right.
But I don't think anybody's willing to poke that bear.
Well, part of it is I think they're planning on taking that part of the fence down in the winter for snow plowing. So, I mean, I guess we'll see.
The west and the south sides do come down.
So, I mean, I guess we'll see
If they
how fast
piled
it
up.
comes up next year, if it comes up again, if they put it back up again, or if this is one of those, I mean, I'm a Legion member, so I mean, of course I support the Legion, you know, I'm a veteran, but, you know, there are disagreements with the Legion about what this should look like, and, you know, just interesting to get down to the
'Cause,
weeds with some of these things, so.
Like I said, I was just there, it was right
Yeah,
in front of me.
no, believe me, I'm very well aware of what it looks like over there, and, yeah,
So just to back to our two fence things,
sure.
ultimately, we as people who are aware of what went on are aware that something's not done right.
Right.
And is it our job to police the city and make sure people are abiding? Or is it's fine until somebody complains?
Well, I mean, my response as a staff person is that typically, we don't have a dedicated planning staff, you know, honestly, you know, so I don't go around looking for issues. If I notice something that's obviously out of compliance, then I'm gonna deal with it. So, I mean, that's up, I guess to answer your question, is it's up to you. You know, if you see something as a commissioner that's obviously out of compliance, then please bring it to me, because I can
Right.
at least get a letter out to you. I don't necessarily have as much time, I wish I could drive around every day, but I don't have time for that. You know, and for us, I mean, neither does Linda. But if there's something that you see, please bring it up, because
No, I'm just talking back
if I
to-
get a complaint, that's usually how we deal with it. It's a complaint-driven process, where if somebody says, hey, it doesn't look right, I go out there and take a look. And I've dealt with a number of very angry, you know, homeowners this fall about various things that the city really has nothing to do with. But, you know, we do the best we can to get the grass mowed in that lot that's vacant next door to you that nobody cares about, and...
Well, I'm just going back to the fence on 57, if no neighbors are complaining, you know, from that standpoint, but,
I don't think it was even a neighbor that brought it up. I mean, I think it was,
They came to
It
this,
was the neighbor that brought it up, because he wanted to put a
well,
fence in.
it was because
Across the street,
somebody,
somebody noticed it,
it was,
right.
because he was putting up a
Because he was
fence.
putting up a fence.
And somebody went to him and said, you know, you can't do that, and he goes, but he did it.
right, and that's what I'm saying,
And that
yes,
was,
yes.
that's where this whole thing got started,
yeah.
is actually, it was somebody who told the guy on Manorville Avenue across the street, you can't do that. And it was actually, I think it was a city person who did it?
I don't know. I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't notice that one until I looked at it. You know, I'm driving up 87, I'm watching traffic as a good driver should be. You know, I didn't look my peripheral vision, you know. But anyways, yeah, I mean, what I'll do with them is I'll send a letter saying, hey, you've got, you know, a certain period of time to bring it in compliance. Otherwise, you know, please contact us so we can talk about it. And I mean, the best way for us to do it is for them to come to a planning commission meeting, because it's better to do it here than it is to do it at a council meeting, to be honest with you, because that way I get your feedback, and hopefully they give you a warm fuzzy that you can say, okay, we feel like they're on the right track. Because, yeah, if they would take it down, they put a different one up, then fine, we're good. Or if he does sell his house, we'll work with the new homeowner, you know, but, because I'm not gonna force a new homeowner to take a fence down that they didn't put up. But, yeah, you can't fix everything, unfortunately. I wish I could. so.
I'm not trying to turn anybody's shoelaces.
No, I mean, I appreciate it. It's good for me to remember a reminder on that one, so I'll make a note on that one. But anyway,
Anything else anybody would like to discuss? I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, and we'll plan on seeing you in December.
That works.
It's your cruising, your vacation, right, you know?